39 days, we have successfully taken up the Gita, completed 8 chapters, and today is the 9th chapter, which is the central theme of the whole Gita. And I'm extremely happy to hear the regular feedback of this initiative. And I'm very, very happy that this most important chapter, chapter 9, Swami Swaroopananda would be taking it for us. Chapter 9 is the central theme of the Gita, and the Acharya who is going to take this class is a very, very rare person. Born in India, he grew up in Hong Kong, had a big business, very affluent, and after meeting Gurudev, he dropped everything and took up to renunciation. Was a person who was very active in the youth wing in Hong Kong, and then he joined the Vedanta course in Sandipani. I have a long association with Swamiji. When I was in Yuva Kendra back in mid-80s, I used to sit, discuss with him quite a bit, and he has definitely guided me in those days to the direction in which one should go. Swamiji is very, very versatile teacher, a rare combination, in whom we can find children associating very comfortably. It's not easy for all of us to associate with children. Swaroopananda would be with children, and he's such a big hit with children. Children simply love him. And the same thing extends to the youth. The youth flock around him, around the world. He's very, very good and very inspiring to the youngsters. And from there, it goes to the adults, senior citizens, students of serious Vedanta, intense learning, all flock around him. That's a very rare combination. It is not just that much. He also addresses the corporate world. And the corporates do benefit from his presence and teaching. Very popular among the corporate world in the education field. And most of you know we have a school in Coimbatore, Chinmaya Vidyalaya, which is an international residential school. Swamiji brought it to the top level, and it is one of the best schools today in India. The entire credit goes to his guidance. The school formed into a brilliant. Swamiji also strongly believes in the policy of expansion, and that is something which I admire. If we do not expand, we shrink. And he has got that missionary zeal to expand, and Swamiji has expanded Chinmaya Mission work across the globe. He was in Hong Kong, and then he went to Australia. Keeping Hong Kong and Australia as a base, he developed the Chinmaya Mission centers in the Far East Asia, in the Gulf countries, in the Europe, and in Africa. So mission centers in all these places have grown up under direct guidance of Swamiji, and that is something really beautiful, because a missionary should have that zeal of expansion, and he does that very beautifully. And most of all, we are very, very happy, and I've been thanking him the day I heard, and today also when I met him, I thanked him. And this thanks comes from deep gratitude. He has accepted, and that's why we are very grateful to him, to take over the responsibilities of heading Chinmaya Mission in the coming year. Thank you, Swamiji. I do not want to stay here because 9 chapters is a beautiful chapter, and we leave it to Swamiji now.
Maheshwara Gurudeva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Chinmayam Vyapiyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Vasudeva Sudam Devam Kamsachanuramardhanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. A fetus in the womb, a bird in an egg. When we see an egg, we cannot even imagine that from this round, hard-looking shell can emerge a beautiful bird. From a small little seed, a mighty tree. From a little fetus, a huge human being. I mean huge sometimes. It's unimaginable. And can you imagine how unimaginable it is to know that this finite, changing, limited, imperishable human being is the infinite. If it is not for the realized masters, the great rishis, saints, sages, gurus, who realize this truth and whose words have come down to us through the authority of the scriptures, the Veda, even in our wildest imagination, even in our, as much as we would say, scientific minds, it is unimaginable to think that I, the limited, is the infinite. I am the impure, I am the divine. I, the limited, is the unlimited. It's a contradiction in itself. Even the words contradict each other. How can the limited ever be unlimited? How can the finite ever, even through all its efforts or his effort, become the infinite? Yet the most impossible has been made possible by our rishis. Even when we gain the knowledge from the scriptures, even then, after having done all our sadhanas to purify our mind and make our mind single-pointed, Bhagavan Shri Krishna has pointed out a sadhana that we can live moment to moment, and that is karmanyevadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. Throughout the Bhagavad Gita, that do your bounden duties that comes according to your nature, role, position in society. But do not limit yourself only to the result. Do not identify only with the result, because there is greater benefit from that type of seva or service, and that is purity of mind. The exhaustion of our limiting forces of the vasanas, and while acting, not incurring more vasanas. And when that happens, one becomes then fit for knowledge, and that knowledge also, when we gain of our infinite nature, knowing is one thing, actually being is something totally different. Because deep down in our psychological personality, these deep-rooted impressions, these deep-rooted vasanas, not some gross desire, likes, dislikes, which we understand as vasanas, these deep-rooted impressions, these deep-rooted vasanas, these character traits, this knowledge and belief that we have that we are this body, mind and intellect, these equipments I am, and with that I am born, I am going to grow old, I am going to die, I have to survive, I have to sustain its worries, its anxieties mentally, its intellectual confusions. I consider all this to be me. And identified with this body, mind and intellect, I become this limited perceiver, feeler, thinker, this limited individual who tries to work out his joy from the world of objects, emotions and thoughts. And yet, in trying to get joy from this world, lands up getting sorrow. See, one thing, Atma-wise we may not consider we are one. But sorrow-wise, we are all one, is it not? See, this oneness is there in any case. We might not think Atma is one, but ask anybody, stay with anybody. You meet anybody, first you ask, hi, how are you? Hari Om, Jai Shri Ram, all is gone now. It is straight away, hi. And first question we ask is, how are you? It's mechanical. Because really we don't want to know. And immediate first response is, fine, thank you, but wait for 2 minutes more, you'll come back that 2 hours you heard is Ramayana. See? So even though we want peace, but the mobile phones will ring. Same thing, we want peace and happiness from the world, but all we end up is gaining sorrow. To imagine that I am of the nature of bliss. This individual tries to get that blissful, eternal happiness from the world of limited object, emotions and thought. The expectation is false, disappointment is natural. How can this limited ego, with its bundles of desires, needs, etc., become the complete Purna, satisfied, peaceful? It appears to be impossible. Even after we know it, we cannot realize it. And this was made possible by our Rishi through contemplation. So having pointed out in the 6th chapter how to make the mind single-pointed, quiet, and through karma yoga having purified the mind, and having gained this knowledge from the teacher, from the guru, then was pointed out 7th and 8th chapter on how to contemplate. And what to contemplate upon, both these things. In the 9th chapter, that which Sri Krishna was explaining in the 7th chapter, what is jnanam and what is vijnanam, what is to be known and how to realize it, how to make it your direct experience. Then Arjuna asked the question because of some technical terms, and the 8th chapter came forth. And 8th chapter beautifully points out to us how to contemplate. And what to contemplate on it is the 9th chapter. And this beautiful 9th chapter, as Swamiji mentioned, is the heart of the Gita. There are few chapters of the Gita which summarizes the entire theme. 2nd chapter, then is the 9th chapter, then is the 12th chapter, and then is the 15th and of course 18th chapter. But the 9th chapter is the very heart of the Bhagavad Gita. In fact, only in the 15th chapter, the height of knowledge. So as Gurudev would say, that Krishna takes you to the giddy heights of knowledge and then takes you on a smooth roller coaster drive. Contradiction. Smooth roller coaster drive, dipping straight into the depths of devotion. And the beauty of this chapter is that the highest knowledge that can be there in any inquiry and philosophy of the world is revealed in this chapter, and the most subtlest, beautiful, tender love is also pointed out in this chapter. The supreme truth which has a relationless relationship with the world. What is the relationless relationship and how intimate is that relationship of love? Both are pointed out in this chapter. And it is in this chapter Sri Krishna transports us, even through the discourse, to the highest state of realization, and it has to be realized during the discourse, and also points out the most direct and effective means by which you can get established in that knowledge, in that truth, in that realization. So we have to glimpse it while we are listening. Then only in the seat of meditation we can then keep on remembering and asserting. And that is called as contemplation. Having explained that in the 8th chapter, now Bhagavan picks up the thread again. And even though Arjuna has asked nothing, but you know what happens? That whenever we are having a very important discussion and someone is giving an idea, and at that moment suddenly you have a question and you tend to divert. A good orator, a good teacher, the student will forget because he'll get so carried away with the question and answer of it. And Krishna's answers are so amazing that 8th chapter we get so carried away, and then also when he talks about the 2 parts and everything, we get carried away, but Krishna says, okay, let's get back to the subject matter.